What's up, everybody? My name is Chris. I'm a merchandising coordinator here at Right Stuf, and we've got some fun game night action ready for you here. We're going to give you a demo of Dark Souls, the board game. I used to work at a comic and game shop for 14 years, and I have a lot of experience with board games, and so I've helped flesh out the board game selection on the website, and this is a hot one that I really wanted to bring to you folks. It's based off of the hit video game from Bandai Namco. It's a classic game that has built its own genre. Honestly, I've been too afraid to play them. Souls-like games are merciless in how they just beat you into submission. But in a board game form, it seems a little bit more inviting, and I think they've done a great job of doing it. So we're going to show you how to play, how to set up, and how to just have a good time with all the awesome minis, cool art, and the nasty monsters you're going to be thrown down with in Dark Souls. Alright, the Dark Souls board game has two main stages in it, where first you adventure through an area and try and confront a mini-boss, and then after that, you venture through a similar zone and fight a main boss. During those fights, you'll take down monsters, you'll gain equipment, and hopefully you'll be all built up to be ready to take on the big challenges that await you. There are 4 different character options that you can use out of the box, and so we are starting out today with the Knight and the Assassin. Each one has their own unique equipment and stats that sort of suits the character. And so they have armor, a weapon, and another hand item, a shield. The characters can carry 2 hands worth of items. They have symbols here that notate whether it is a one-handed or two-handed item, and the slots are right here, and you can actually enhance them down the road using the slots below. They also have one more spot where they can keep another hand item at hand in case they need to change weapons for a particular fight. Those items are selected based off of their stats. Each character has 4 stats: strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith. You need to have certain minimums on your character sheet to be able to equip those, and down the road you'll be able to enhance that. Each character is also outfitted with an Estus flask that they can use to heal their stamina and damage, a luck token to let them reroll dice, and a heroic action. Each character has their own ability they can only use once during a spark, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. Alright, our adventure starts here at the bonfire tile. This is the home base for our adventurers, and that is where they will return to when they will die. You're going to die, it's okay. That's just the thing that happens in Dark Souls. Fortunately, you have sparks. This dial here has a number on it, and that is how many sparks that you get during a mission. Should one of your characters die, you stop fighting and you reset at the bonfire tile. You spend one of those sparks and you reset your stats back to full. Once you run out of sparks, that's when you lose. But fortunately, if you don't have enough power to defeat your enemies, you can reset. You can also choose to return to the bonfire after any fight and rest up, but the thing is, when you do that, all the monsters are going to respawn. So first thing before we start adventuring, we're going to shuffle up the treasure deck. There's a big deck right here that has a bunch of loot that we're going to be gunning for, and we're going to add character-specific loot to that deck. So that way, there's more stuff to fight for that will help your characters. Boom. All right, the treasure deck is now set up, and so we're going to set up the encounters that we're going to face based off of the mini-boss that we've selected. All right, this is the enemy we're going to fight as our mini-boss, the Titanite Demon. It has a bunch of stats that weren't relevant right now. We'll get to those when we actually find him. But he also has symbols at the bottom of the card that shows you what kind of encounters you're going to face. There are 3 different kinds: level 1, 2, and 3. You'll set them up with the easiest ones closer to the bonfire as you see fit, and then fill out the rest, keeping the most difficult ones far away. So for the Titanite Demon, we have 1 level 1 encounter and 3 level 2 encounters. And you will add those to each of the 4 tiles you set up. You want to lay them out in a way so there's a clear path that you can get around to everything, but you have one door open, and that is where we're going to put the wall of fog. Once you've defeated all the enemies, you can enter that wall of fog in that final room. You can go back and pick up any other rooms you haven't defeated yet, but once this room's defeated, then you can enter the mini-boss combat. All right, so let's get adventuring. Our party is first going to set out to this level 1 encounter, and so when you do that, you move them onto the first node they can reach. When we get into action, I'll explain how the nodes and movement work. But we'll flip over our encounter card, and we have entered the Dark Hollow. There are symbols on each card that correspond to the red and purple spots on the board. Those will tell you what monsters we're going to be facing. We have a deck of cards here, each representing one of the main basic monsters. And so in this room, we're going to face a large hollow soldier. We have a large variety of monsters, and in this case, this is the large hollow soldier that we're going to be facing down. And he will spawn on the one sword red space. So he's already right on top of our adventurers. Also covered on the setup card are terrain that you're going to be facing on the purple spots. In this case, the starburst symbol has a treasure chest on it. That's what we're kind of here for, to get loot to make us stronger. And then the other symbol, the cross symbol, has a gravestone. These will come up later, but in the meantime, these are obstacles that we cannot go through. So if you hit that, you're going to have to move somewhere else. The monster card explains all the actions that it's going to take during combat. The center symbol shows its defenses against physical and magic damage. The symbol on the right shows you how much dodging you need to do to avoid its attacks potentially. The symbol on the left shows its attack range. In this case, it does not have a number listed, so it can only attack things in its own space. The bottom symbols will show you the actions that the monster takes. In this case, the arrows show its movement. The number up will mean it will move towards its target, and the number on the down arrow will show if it moves away. The symbol in the upper right corner explains what it will focus on. If there's a circle there, it will attack the nearest character. If it's a skull, it will attack the person with the aggro token. In this case, it doesn't have an attack action. Its move is an attack. The symbol in the upper left corner here explains pushing. When it moves, it will push any targets in the space it's going for out of that space and attempt to deal that much damage to them. So in this case, 5 damage. When you're actually fighting, the monsters will alternate between each player. So the monsters will go first, and then whoever you choose to fight in the first encounter will go. Then the monsters again, then the next person clockwise. It continually alternates between the monsters and the next player in your order. So the enemies are going to get some extra shots at you, but you will have a lot more interesting ways to deal with that combat. For the first turn, the monster is going to focus on the closest player. The players are both on the same node. Nodes can carry up to 3 characters at a time. If not, they have to move elsewhere. So the monster is going to approach our party and push them away 1. You get to choose which adjacent spot you want them to go to. Anything diagonal or up and down, left, right, or orthogonal, if you want to use a fun word, is where they can go. So we're going to split the team up and put the knight over here and the assassin over here. Now that monster is going to attack both of them for 5 as part of its movement. Characters can find a way to deflect this damage, or they can choose to dodge. If they choose to defend against it, they will use the shield symbols on their cards and determine what their block is. All right, when blocking, you determine what dice you use based off the armor and shields that you have equipped. The knight has his knight armor giving him a blue die, and the kite shield gives him a black die. The black die is the lowest priority. It only has up to 2 swords on it. The blue die has up to 3. There's also an orange die you can get that goes up to 4 down the road, but you need to find the equipment to get access to that. So we're going to roll to see if we can defend against that 5 damage that the large hollow soldier is dealing to us. And we rolled a 4. So the knight will take 1 damage from that attack. When that happens, you use the track at the bottom of your character card. The red end is where you put damage. The black end is where you put stamina. And to show you how that works, we're going to attempt to dodge that same attack for the assassin. If you want to try to not take damage from attack, you can dodge. And to do that, you use the symbols that have the dodge, that is the second from the right at the bottom of your equipment. So the assassin gets 1 die from his assassin armor and 1 die from his target shield. You will move to any adjacent node and gain 1 stamina. And then you roll the dice, and if any dodge symbol shows up, you get to dodge that attack and take no damage. We had 2 show up. When you first attempt to dodge, you lose a stamina, and that is represented by adding a black cube to your bar. If at any point the stamina you lose and the damage you take should meet on your bar, your character has died, you go back to the bonfire and reset. At the start of your turn, you remove 2 stamina. So we're going to have the assassin go first here. Alright, so our assassin is going to step up to our monster here. And we're going to attempt to attack, and that is when you use the weapon. In this case, he has an S-stock. And each weapon has multiple ways you can use it. The number on the left represents how much stamina you lose to use that attack. So for the assassin here, if he uses his S-stock, you can get a free attack. You roll 2 black dice, and you subtract 1 from that attack. If you wanted, you can spend 3 stamina to use 3 black dice and subtract 1 instead. The large hollow soldier only has 1 physical defense, so we don't really need to go hard right now. So we're just going to go for 2 dice. You roll it. You see the result. In this case, we got 3. And so you subtract the 1 defense from the soldier and add the damage in skulls to that mini. So since the difference subtracted from the shield is 2, we'll add 2 skulls to him. So he's taken his damage. And since it's his turn, he has the aggro token. Next up, the monster gets to go again, because the monster always goes between each player's activation. So now he is focusing on the nearest player, and since one is right on top of him as opposed to the one that is 1 node away, he's going to attack just the assassin. So if you start base to base with somebody that's pushing, they will get pushed first before he actually makes his move and attacks. So he's going to push our assassin over here, but that will not deal the damage. This one will. And so the assassin is going to push over here, and once again, he gets attacked for 5. Our assassin is again going to try and dodge, so we'll spend another stamina. And we'll roll 2 dice, and that time he did not succeed, so he is taking 5 damage. That hurt a lot. But hopefully his friend the knight can come in and save his butt. 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so the knight is now up. He doesn't have any stamina to regain, so we will just leave that alone. And now he will step up to the knight. Or to the soldier, excuse me. And our knight, his basic attack is 1 blue die. But he's feeling like he can win this. So we're going to try and use our big stamina attack. We're going to spend 4 black dice. Or 4 black cubes, excuse me, to make the attack. So in this case, instead of just a blue die, he will get a blue die and a black die. We'll see how we do here. We have rolled 4. His defense is 1, so he will take 3 damage. He has 5 hit points, so we have successfully defeated the monster. When you defeated a monster, you get some good things. You add 2 souls per character to your Well of Souls back on the bonfire tile. These will be useful because you can use them to upgrade. Then, if you have a treasure chest on your tile, you open it, and you gain 2 items. In this case, we'll take the top 2 cards off the deck. And we have earned a Silver Knight Straight Sword and a Titanite Shard. All right. So the Silver Knight Straight Sword is a pretty sweet piece of equipment. There's only one problem. The Knight is not well trained enough to use it. You need a minimum of 20 in every stat to be able to pick that up. To do that, you have to level up your stats. You can go back to the bonfire tile and not spend a spark to do other functions. So in this case, the Knight could spend some of the souls that they've earned in the fight to level up to equip that sword. When you go from base to tier 1, that is 2 souls you spend. From tier 1 to tier 2, you spend 4. And to reach tier 3, you have to spend 8. And that is for each stat individually. Since it's going to take a lot of work to gain those levels, we're just going to put that in our inventory for now. The other item we pulled was a Titanite Shard, and that can be used to enhance weapons. The icon in the lower right shows you how many enhancements you can add to an item. Unfortunately, since we still have just a starting equipment, those do not have an enhancement slot, so that's also going back in the inventory. We didn't do so great pulling, but that's what happens sometimes in games like this. So now that we're at a pause, we can choose to go back, and we can also try and see if we can turn those souls into equipment we can use. So we're going to return to the bonfire here, and we're going to spend 1 soul to reveal the top card of the treasure deck. And that is something that is a little bit more achievable, but still a little bit down the road. The Reinforced Club also has stats that we can't quite use that yet. But we'll get there. We've got a lot more space to adventure and more souls to gain. All right, we skipped ahead in the action. Our party has cleaned out the rooms. They found a couple of good pieces of loot, and they are ready to take on the mid-boss. In which case, we now get out the mid-boss tile. And this is where the big threat shows up, the Titanite Demon. All right, when setting up a boss encounter, you have 2 different kinds of cards for him. You have regular attacks and heat-up attacks. Heat-up attacks will be added to the deck when you reach the hit point total shown with the flame in the center right of the boss card. We're going to set up the boss's deck by putting as many cards as listed in the center left icon, in this case 4. He comes with 5 basic attacks, so we'll remove 1. And then we will reveal the top card of the deck. Now the boss encounter is ready to begin. The boss has some special rules to him. In this case, if he takes 3 or more damage from 1 attack roll, you reduce that damage by 1. So how he will work is first, he will activate like normal. And so we'll flip over the next card of the activation deck and see what he has. The Vicious Swing will focus on here. He will rotate 180 degrees according to the first symbol. And then he will attack anything in an adjacent node, but there's nobody adjacent to him yet. These monsters have very unique movements and get very angry. So you have to be careful and plan out your attacks based on where he goes. If you notice the symbol on the bottom, it shows the attacks that he would do. Normally, he would attack the zones in front of him, behind him, and to his right. But his left side is now open and vulnerable for an attack. At the end of the last encounter, the Knight was the last to attack, so the Assassin will get the activation token to know he starts first. And so, now that the monster is done with his turn, the Assassin will try and step up and attack. He is 3 spaces away from the boss, so he will have to move to get to his left side to take advantage of that vulnerability. So he will step 1, 2, 3, and because that took 2 extra spaces from normal, he will lose 2 stamina. Then he's going to attempt to attack him. He's got a new weapon here called a scimitar. And so he will roll 2 black dice with no subtraction for his main attack. But he's got to get through a lot of defense because the boss has 3. And he's only rolled 2, so that will deal no damage. Then the boss gets to act again. So we flip over the next card. In this case, this is a double swing. So first, he's going to move towards the person who is closest, which is already on his space. He's going to move 1 and push him. So he's already pushed off of his space and then pushed again. Now his attack lets him attack 4 in front of him. Whenever he moves, he focuses on the target before resolving his attacks. So the assassin is right in the line for a 4 damage attack. The assassin is going to attempt to dodge this one, so he will lose another stamina. He's still sitting on 2 dodge, so we will roll 2 dice again. And he succeeds in dodging that, so he takes no damage. But this also has a repeat symbol, which means the boss will do his actions again. So he will once again push the assassin. And when you push, you can move in wherever you want to go as long as it's an adjacent node to where you were. And that way you can potentially set yourself up for another sneak attack in his weak point. And so he will focus again on the assassin, and the assassin is going to try to dodge again. And in this case, we're going to dodge over here to try and get to that back space that is vulnerable. So he'll lose another stamina and dodge again and succeed. So we're safe. Now it's the knight's turn. The knight is 2 spaces away. Our knight, sadly, does not have the offensive power to really get a hit in very well without losing a lot of stamina. So he's just going to kind of have to hang out and draw attention. Might as well attack, try and work around to the weak point, see if he can get some damage in. So he was here before. Oh, no, he was there before, right? Yeah. Unfortunately for him, it will take 4 stamina to get to the weak point. So he's just going to have to dance with the big guy for now. So he's going to hold his spot and attempt to pull aggro. Pull that out of the way. All right. Next boss action happens. And so now he's going to move 2 towards the closest one and push them. And then do an attack for 4 with push. And that's at a range 1, so he can hit any adjacent spot. So he will focus, once again, on our poor assassin. And we'll step 1 to push, 2 to push. Unfortunately for the guy now, he's still in range to attack, but his front arc is the vulnerable one. So first he's going to attack our assassin for 4. And the assassin has not had a chance to refresh his stamina, so he is hurting pretty bad. Unfortunately, his defenses don't really help him out that much, so he is going to try to dodge. So he's going to spend a stamina, and he's actually going to slide right base to base to get an access at that weak point. He does successfully dodge, so he doesn't take any damage. And now it's the assassin's turn, and we will remove 2 stamina tokens because it's the start of the turn. And now he is going to try and get in on that soft spot. So he will spend 3 stamina to take advantage of the good situation he's in. And he's going to roll 2 orange dice plus 1. This is going to deal a lot of damage to the boss should this hit potentially. And he rolled 3. I probably rolled about as poorly as you can go. So he's not going to take any damage at all. Then, now that the boss is up, his attack deck resets. Instead of reshuffling this, we just flip it over and reveal the next card. This way, as you play, your characters can learn an attack pattern and try to exploit that to deal damage. As the encounter goes on, once the boss has reached enough damage to be at his heat-up point, you will then add heat-up cards to his deck. Once you have that card, you shuffle it into the deck, and now the players have to learn a new sequence of attacks to avoid. Should the team be so lucky as to defeat the monster, they get special treasure based on that boss, and then they reset at the bonfire without having to spend a spark, and then you rebuild the encounter based on the boss card. In this case, we've got the Dancer of the Boreal Valley, and he has more difficult encounters to go along with that. And so you set up, and you do this all over again, fighting your way through smaller enemies, getting gear, and taking on the boss. And the boss gets more spectacular because that is when you would add a second tile to give you a really big room to fight in. But if you defeat that boss, you win the game. If you run out of sparks, you die. It's just how it goes. All right, it's been a rough fight, but I think we got through it pretty well. And if you enjoyed this, we have this available on our website, so you should check it out. We got plenty of expansions too, so if you want even more monsters and more heroes to work with, you got a ton of options to work with. We'd like to thank our friends at Steamforged Games for providing a demo copy that we can show off to all you folks. So hopefully you will check out our website, pick up some of their games, and have a great time with us. Thanks for watching, y'all. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to our channel, and keep following us, and hopefully we'll be back giving you some more game demos soon.